Hello, I'm Kenza Gray, co-owner and curator at Grey Area Gallery, and welcome to our latest exhibition, Sublime Anecdotes. Sublime Anecdotes brings together the works of two artists, Samuel Hennig and Daniel Franklin, who are both painters that we see sharing this sensitivity towards the duality to be found within everyday life, this beauty versus melancholy. Rather than grand narratives, their art focuses more on these fleeting moments and the everyday mundanity, but finding the importance within those subtle and quiet moments. Within the exhibition, we're asking viewers to take a slower, more attentive way of looking, and this is encouraged by the subject matter, but also the form and colour palette of these two artists' bodies of work. So Daniel Franklin is an artist that we've worked with for almost 2 years now, and he's an artist we represent. And Sam Hennig is a new artist working with us. And it was in these discussions with Sam that he was talking about his inspiration of his paintings. And every time, me and Marie were both thinking, he's speaking exactly the same as how Daniel talks about his art, which is really interesting because on a surface level, especially the body of work that we have in this exhibition, their art is quite contrasting. Daniel's very much looking at figurative moments, and Sam is very much looking at these abstracted moments, bringing in text and form and colour. What we wanted to do when conceiving of this exhibition was bring them together to show this shared influence and interest within their bodies of work, in this way that we saw that their works do naturally do. They are opposing, but they are quite complementary within their inspiration, but also the emotive response that it asks from the audience. So Daniel Franklin is an East Anglian-based artist. He primarily focuses on figurative oil paintings. And in this exhibition, he brought a brand new body of work. And I think it very much highlights exactly what his art does. And that is focusing on these raw figures, which are somewhat poised between strength and vulnerability. And the overall feeling of the work brings this sense of focusing on the quiet, emotional weight that everyday life carries. So there's moments where you're not sure if the person is happy, content, sad, if they're in an emotional moment, pure bliss or pure distraught. And I think that that's where he captures this mixture and duality within life. Daniel studied moving image production at the Norwich University of Arts, and I think that his work very much carries a cinematic sensibility. They almost feel like film stills. There is clearly a larger narrative going on, and yet we are just given this one moment. So pieces behind me, like Silver Spring Stellata or A Sunday in June, we are really looking in on a moment, as if we're looking for a portal. We're not really meant to be there, and yet we're slightly invited in. It feels as if there is this larger, unspoken narrative. One thing that always stands out to me about Daniel's works is his combination of being extremely personal and yet the pieces feel very universal. And I think that this is because they allow the visitor to connect with them. They are rendered in a very soft and muted colour palette in a way that feels very vulnerable. The pieces behind me, I want to talk a little bit about the form of them. This use of negative space in the canvas, I think, is very important in the strength of these works. As the viewer, you are allowed in this moment, this memory that Daniel is painting, and it feels like a memory. There's negative space. What we're focusing on is the feeling of looking at this person laying in bed. It's not the lamp that's on the nightstand or the window of people passing by. We are truly focused in on the emotion of this person and this moment. Now, in this body of work, there is a sense of unease. In one way, this can be seen as a happy moment. Laying in bed, it's a Sunday in June. It's a moment that we've all lived, and it's that feeling of being present. But there is very much a sense of something beneath the surface. And that's where, again, this larger narrative that Daniel's bigger bodies of work hints at comes into play. Yes, we're in this moment, but what has happened before? What is going to happen? and there is an unease. It's not often that you're actually invited to look in on someone laying in bed. And the figure, although content, does not look happy. I think again we see that in the other piece, Silver Spring Stellata. This man is laying in the sun, in the grass. It's a moment of bliss. And yet his face gives a sense of longing. In this body of work, if you look at it as a whole, that's where I think we start to feel this melancholy of longing that Daniel is painting about. Along with the context and feeling that Daniel captures in this painting, I wanted to highlight it as I think it's an extremely strong piece of work. The form that we're getting, this negative space taking up a huge amount of the canvas, and the flesh being sort of dragged across as he paints it, really gives a sense of being present. The subtle texture. So we get moments where we can see his brushstrokes, we can see the pencil markings of figuring out that again feel as if Daniel's working through this piece in a dynamic way. It's a moving moment, the hand is blurred and we get this sense of flesh evolving as Daniel's painting it. I love this contrast of the stark green coming in, which we get in a lot of the works, against this raw canvas. It's a really beautiful painting that people have been drawn to for, like I say, this use of soft colour, texture within the paint, and this really sensitive moment that feels beautiful and really creates a strong painting that commands attention. As the visitor continues round through Daniel's body of work, we get a couple of other pieces that people have really highlighted as favourites. And I think that it's, again, this sense of simplicity but beautifully rendered. There's a sense of really focusing on the figures and their flesh, and they're contrasted with this stark canvas behind them, as if they're almost fading away into it. Then you're continuing on and you're contrasted with this bold green work. In the piece behind me, Grey Shorts Hidden No. 2, we're in, again, one of these moments where we're allowed in, but we kind of are seeing a fleeting moment, a memory again, like a film still, of this man passing through, and he's concealed behind the plant, allowing this beautiful moment to be transferred to us in a personal and again but universal way that we can all relate to. The view we get in this corner really allows us to understand Daniel's strength in use of these colour palettes and form, in allowing dynamic and intriguing ways of seeing this narrative playing through. When engaging with both Daniel and Sam's works, we believe it becomes apparent that you need to view them closer. You need to take a moment in silence to look slowly and engage with the work on a personal level. So when we were thinking about this centre part of the room where both of their works meet, we wanted to create a space where you could step into and engage one-on-one with each work. So that's where we conceived of this booth, to create a curtained-off area that you could walk into and have both of their works confronting you and allowing you nowhere else to look, only at the artworks. So that's why we wanted to make it a bit darker and have the spotlights above each piece to really focus your view in and, as I say, allow you nowhere else to look other than to engage with it and make your own personal connection with each piece. In the booth we have Daniel's work on the back here, Deadhead December, which is bold, vibrant and in your face, full of this mustard yellow and this flesh and the really vibrant green wreath. It really has an emotional weight to it, and I think that having it pretty much hung at eye level allows each person stepping in to be totally confronted with it. And as I say, have your own personal experience with what you think this person is thinking, what you're thinking. It's a really beautiful piece, and again, the texture that Daniel achieves with the brush strokes, it's quite thickly laid on for oil painting, especially in the wreath where you get every brush stroke really shines through, especially with this light above it, highlighting it. And I really love the pink in his flesh and his cheeks, how it contrasts but also complements the pinks and the sort of fleshy colours in Sam's works in the booths that I'll get to in a second. Really, this space also allowed, on what are quite busy opening evenings, a space that you could step away from the noise and chatting with your friends and the artists. And as I say, just go in there and have a slightly quieter moment to really engage with the artworks. So the second half of the room is consumed by the paintings of Sam Hennig. Sam is a painter based in Sussex, but who studied here at the UEA in English literature. His practice is driven by an instinctive connection to the act of painting. So its textures, its colours, and the evolving process of creating a piece. Inspired by everyday and fleeting moments, such as laying in bed and listening to the rainfall, or walking along a seashore having a chat, Sam's work highlights these overlooked moments, finding meaning, connection, and importance in their simplicity. I think that when you're walking through the room, these are the moments that stand out to you, and people have really been connecting with reading his text, which is, like Daniel's work, personal, and yet it's universal. We have all experienced these moments or have our own memories of these moments. By focusing on these, he's allowing us to delve into these abstracted works. With the inclusion of the text, we have a moment given to us. We're allowed to be thinking about, in this piece, for example, a walk and a chat in the sun. We have all been there. We're thrown into this moment. And I think that the abstracted work allows us to bring our own thoughts into it. I think it's very relevant that Sam did study English literature, and having spoken to him about his practice, he mentioned to me how he does write little bits of poetry here and there. And it's not that he starts painting because he wrote this poem, or he wrote this poem or extract because of the painting. It's an evolving process. In painting, Sam continuously layers on the work, and he mentioned to me often not letting the layer fully dry before he adds the next, and the text sometimes evolves as he's creating. So as I mentioned, it's this really dynamic way of creating in which he's really driven by the act of painting. The piece behind me, A Walk and a Chat, has been one of the crowd favourites. I think for its scale, firstly, you walk in and this huge canvas, which allows the feeling of almost diving into it because of its depth, greets you. So I think already people are drawn to it. But I think also this beautiful colour palette, and that's achieved by this layering that I've just mentioned. We see these greens, blues, whites, this sort of vast amount of abstracted canvas that I think people have been seeing different things in, whether it feels like a seascape or smoke or a sky with clouds. And again, I think that's what Sam's work does so beautifully. Although we have this phrase which allows us to understand the canvas a bit, we are allowed to put our own thoughts onto it. What's important to highlight as well in this painting is the free feeling of the mark making. So we have this beautiful layered coloured blues and greens that I've mentioned, but on the surface of that, Sam adds these sort of fleeting moments of marks that I think again highlight the context behind the piece. They are fleeting moments, and they beautifully add contrast to the surface, to this really soft feeling of the background with these kind of harsh but very energetic marks on the surface. I wanted to highlight the piece behind me, Rain Came, as it almost contrasts the piece we've just looked at, in we're getting a lot more energy and dynamism in this piece. So the text on it reads, "Rain came, you held my hand, we put our hoods up and listened to the tapping." And again, we have this moment given to us, but it's such a universal moment that anyone can relate to it. Sam does this in a really beautiful way, but then he contrasts it with this really, like I say, energetic mark making. There's a lot of texture in the surface of this canvas. And unlike the piece we've just seen, which has this really subtle and soft feel to it, this piece really feels like Sam wanted to get this piece out. The energy really gives an explosive feel to it. And I think it has a really strong presence, but also uses the similar subtle colour palette. I think it's a really interesting piece, and one that people have really connected to, as I say, in the text, but also in the beautiful way in which he's created the painting. As you continue round the room, other elements of Sam's work become apparent, such as his inclusion of text and marks on the side of the canvases, which people have really been engaging with and enjoying, trying to read the phrases around the edges or look at the marks along the side. This really makes the canvas feel completed and whole. We've had a lot of people comment that it's really a lovely inclusion, that it wouldn't need a frame, and that the work continues round the side and it adds this almost 3D element to the canvas. The larger piece behind me, Grass Flattened by the Rain, as I said at the start, flanks the room along with Daniel's large green work over there. It really has, again, a contrast. The dynamic pieces, it has a really soft element to it. It's really pared back. There's a lot less of this addition of the mark making on the surface that allows you to really delve into it. The text addition to this piece really enhances it. When I think about grass and rain, I think about the smell and the texture. It's adding another element to the work. We're getting these other senses come through when you look at the painting and think about the scenario that Sam's highlighting. And when we're looking at this really bold and quite subtle use of green, we're seeing the brush marks on the canvas. But as I say, it has a really soft and subtle feel to it. In the additions of the sort of splats of paint, we're getting this hint of rain. There's a hint of water hitting grass, literally, in this piece. I think it has a really inviting presence to it for all of these elements. The piece next to me, Moments by Sam, is a really captivating work. We wanted to put it in the booth that I've mentioned before to really give people this moment with it and to really highlight the subtle, strong, and beautiful presence that the painting has. So the text reads, "It isn't just the big moments, it is often the quiet ones, when you notice unexpected sunshine casting shadows on the kitchen surface, when rain has been falling for days." This passage, I think, really highlights the essence of this exhibition and Sam's body of work. These moments, these beautiful in-between moments, noticing sunshine, rain, and just thinking about this connection that we all have to these moments. As I say, they're personal to Sam, but they're universal to all of us. It has really been a crowd favourite piece, and I think highlighting it in here has allowed people to sit with it for a moment and think about what we're all experiencing in everyday life. When curating the exhibition, we noticed that Sam had this larger section of the work, which is the blues, the greens, but then there was a few of these pieces with the more peach and pink colour palette. So again, we wanted to bring those separate to the other pieces, and it's almost unexpected when you walk in here to find those pieces. It has a really beautiful presence to it in the use of the pink, the red, the white. And again, like some of the pieces we've looked at, it's a bit more pared back. There's less mark making in this piece, which really allows you to fall into the work and focus on these moments that he's asking you to. Yet we have the interest in the addition of the mark making at the bottom here, contrasted with the vast expanse of canvas up here. It really is a striking work, and I'm happy that people have really bonded with it. On the opposing side of the booth, we featured the piece A Murmur of Voices, which again I think, well, it almost contrasts the piece opposite. It has the same colour palette, but there's a lot more dynamism in it, the mark making, the splattering of the paint. But also, like the piece opposite, it really highlights this exhibition. So A Murmur of Voices and the crackle of cars on wet tarmac somewhere in the distance is almost what's happening in this booth, especially in that busy opening evening. When you're in here, the people on the outside become just this murmur of voices, and we're asking you to drown those out and think about the painting, connect with the painting. So it really was lovely to see people come into this booth along with Daniel's work and take those moments to be present and yet pensive, thinking about moments that we've all had and experienced. We are now closing the doors on Sublime Anecdotes, so thank you for watching the video. I hope it's given you an insight into the exhibition and the artist's works. Thank you to everyone who attended. It's been a really great exhibition. We've enjoyed chatting to everyone and hearing their thoughts and their ways of connecting with each of the artist's works. The exhibition catalogue is available. It's available on our website, but you can also email us for any further information about the artists or their works. For now, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.